what does actually happen during exercise? And that's the question we want to ask ourselves. Short-term effects are what we would refer to as, well, I'm referring to them at least as during effects. So as we are exercising, what actually goes on physiologically, internally, biologically that changes? So we're looking at change and transition. So look, the first point is incredibly straightforward, but during exercise, no shock to you, this would be, we get an up arrow. That means increase for today, by the way, in heart rate. So we get an increase in heart rate. Now, I'm not going to get into the how of how the heart, the contractile force, the muscular pump behind the social system. I'm not going to get into how that actually happens, but we could reflect on why heart rate increases. Heart rate increases because in this table tennis performer's example, we could say, is that the heart needs to get blood to this hitting arm more efficiently, faster, more of it. So therefore we need more contractions and more contractile force behind pushing that blood around to get that to the working muscle. We could have said that about this yoga performer's gastrocnemius, or about this tricep here. The heart is the force, the muscular contractile force that pushes the nutrients to where they're needed. So of course it increases in its frequency. Now a second point kind of relates. I mean, it's very similar notion really. We get an up arrow, or an increase might be a better way of putting that. That's an A, believe it or not. Let me make it more A, in the rate of breathing. So at rest, for example, before performance, before, for example, starting this fun run, this marathon, whatever it happens to be, average person might breathe between sort of 7 and 12 times in a minute. And when we start exercising, the rate of that breathing increases. It could be up to 25 or 30 breaths per minute, sometimes more, but not so frequently. So that happens. Why? Because we are trying to get greater quantities of air into the lung. We're ventilating the lung more frequently, and our rate of breathing therefore goes up. Now, we also get, and you will have experienced this, maybe even once or twice you've been embarrassed by this, completely normal, of course, but we get red skin. The skin gets red. Now, first of all, this is a form of thermoregulation or heat control. In fact, let me put that term in. Let me just drag down slightly. I'm going to actually put that term in for you, for heat control. Oops. So we're talking about red skin is a form of heat control, or you could use the term thermoregulation if you're feeling good about it. Okay, but we've got heat control. And the reason this is more blood is being distributed to pass by the skin. Why? Because if the blood passes by the skin, let's say on your face, your cheeks, your chest, your legs, whatever, it is more likely to be cooled down. And of course, during exercise, we get an increase in heat, and therefore this red skin is a reflection of a method of controlling blood temperature. We pass the blood by the skin, and therefore the blood is cooled down by the external environment more efficiently. Now, one other form of heat control you might want to reflect on is sweating. Sweating, by the way, if I just link that to our heat control also, sweating in the form of evaporation of water from the skin. Sweating cools the skin temperature down, and therefore is a form of heat control. We're nearly there, folks. When we are exercising, we may well experience fatigue. Think about fatigue. That word as tiredness, soreness, could be muscle soreness, muscle fatigue, very likely. It could be other forms, but fatigue is likely to occur. Now, you might want to reflect on why that might be the case. Are we experiencing a buildup of lactic acid, for example, or is it just that the muscles have been overworked, overstressed? But fatigue is a likely outcome of exercise. And finally, to round this off nice and neatly, what might we experience? Well, this is an interesting word. We might experience nausea. Think of nausea as a feeling of sickness, vomity-like feeling, like the stomach's not right. Or, if I just put a little slash there, we might experience light-headedness. Okay, let me write this correctly. Light-headedness, okay? Light-headedness. So, of course, a couple of reasons why this might be the case. Nausea could be that if we're doing very, very heavy work, lots of anaerobic work, or work that is very much overloading compared to what we're used to, we might feel that kind of sickness. And lightheadedness, this might be experienced because a lot of blood is being distributed to, for example, the legs. For example, the legs here, okay? And as a result of that, maybe a slightly lesser amount of oxygenated blood is being delivered to the brain, and we might just feel that kind of lightheadedness feel. Exercise is not dangerous, don't worry. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.